I think Dragon Ball has a very particular nostalgic quality that not a lot of other shonen, or really a lot of Japanese media in general, has. To quote Jacob Chapman in regard to Digimon, the digital world will always have a place for you, no matter how old you are, or something to that effect. And the same is basically true of Dragon Ball. Whereas most shonen shows, once you hit 25, you're generally relegated to the old people club more often than not. In the case of Dragon Ball, and I suppose Digimon, but today we're talking about Dragon Ball, there is always a place for you. If you were 10, the Dragon World would have an adventure for you. If you are 20, you have a place here. If you are 35 with 3 children, there's something going on for you. And that's a quality that I don't really see represented very much in anime. Very commonly, nostalgia feels very cynical in the sense of the old days were the only good ones. There's nowhere to go but down, but let's enable an Ouroboros cycle and just keep going back to the past where everything was good. And this is why I feel Pokemon games tend to feel very soulless and weak, and sometimes even a little bit disgusting, if I'm being entirely honest. Mostly because of this implication that there is no future, there is only past, and the only way that anything has ever been good is to insist on clinging to the past with a shiny paint of coat. Now, the actual quality of Dragon Ball as a series is questionable, which is fair. However, the flavor of nostalgia that Dragon Ball inspires is one of more optimism, in the sense of no matter how old you are, the Dragon World will have a place for you. And not in a sort of nebulous sense as a background character or as an old wise advisor, but there are plenty of adventures for you to have no matter how old you are. If you are a 10-year-old just starting out life, there are plenty of things to happen to you. If you are 20, there are plenty of adventures around the corner. If you are 30, 40, literally pushing 50, don't worry, there's still much to come out of life, and that only comes out of whatever you want to put into it. And I feel like that flavor of optimism is something I don't think I've ever really seen much in anime before. While JoJo does have elements of this with older characters reoccurring relatively often, specifically Joseph Joestar, these are older characters that I've seen a lot but are still relegated to the backstage. Video games can sometimes get a little bit better with this, but more often than not, older video game protagonists are grizzled, angry guys that are mad about something that they lost. And this isn't necessarily supposed to be a hot take of angry, bearded man going after some guys for beating up his kid or family, but specifically a takedown of this lack of optimism. Like, once you hit a certain age, there's no more joy. There's no more adventures to be had. But, just like in real life, things don't stop happening to you until you go, and I don't really see that represented very often in any media, really, outside of just Dragon Ball. So I think that is a very powerful driving force as to why we keep going back to it. Because every time we come back to it, it's not just a case of, okay, now you're the advisor, but no, if you're 35, if you're 45, if you're 55, there's still plenty of adventures around the bend that you're the star of. And in a pop culture environment, especially relative to Japanese media, where things are more and more being driven by nostalgia, and we grow more and more distant from the figures that mostly make it up, being told that there's still stuff for you to do in the real world and having representation of that in the fiction that you enjoy is something that will slowly more and more be needed as time goes on. This video was significantly different from what I normally do in terms of tone. That's mostly because I haven't said the word fuck during the entire video. So, if you thought that was interesting, make sure you let me know by liking this video and consider subscribing. Also consider supporting me by following me on my social media in the link. And if you thought the ideas in this video were at least somewhat interesting, maybe